Okay, thank you for tuning into Stampscaping 101. Here is another full-size scene, which I usually don't do back to back, but I really liked that last one that I did and had fun with it and whatnot. And I felt like doing a scene, composition, format, whatever, that I hadn't done before, and that's using multiple moons. The moon, kind of, the prominent moon right in back of this figure, you can't even see. But that one is the cloud with rising moon, but I just used it as kind of a format down here to place the silhouette of the lone figure against, and then I have these, I have all these other different moons, not moon phases, they're all full moons, kind of going up in the scene like that. But I figured I wanted to try something with moons. I can never have enough sky figures and moons. And I thought I would just do it in one scene right here. So the 8.5 by 11 afforded that, and kind of had fun with some my compass and white gel pen doing these concentric circles to kind of bring a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a structure to the scene and to give the extra kind of focal point. You know, it's like a target or something like that on my figure down here. So my name of my piece here is the girl that loved the moon, or something like that. And it's for the this month's challenge in the Facebook group with bold silhouettes. So I figured something like that might suffice, and I don't know, there's my silhouette down here, and hopefully the scene in general is fairly bold. So if you choose to watch the video, I hope you enjoy it. Thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes YouTube channel. Okay, I wasn't planning on doing a full-page scene back to back with another full-page scene, but I figured, well, since we're on this kind of challenge of dramatic, bold pieces, the drama potentially can be increased just from the very presence of area, and the more of it, I don't know, possibly the more dramatic. Okay, so, and I thought for this one too I would go with kind of a combination of some designs that I haven't done before, just for the very fact that I have the space to do it on this full-size letter 8.5 by 11 piece of glossy cardstock. Now, you know, I'm probably going to be doing some matte, you know, some card-size matte compositions after this. I tend to be kind of a cyclical, and I don't know, I get a little bit tired of doing the same thing, but I don't know, maybe like bookmarks or something like that, or magnets, or, you know, something. I'll go with something like that. But let's do another full size right now and see what we come up with. Okay, I have a little bit of space to fill in with this ledge here. Okay, this rocky ledge, rocky bluff, was it? So I'm just kind of matching up that kind of that line with this one. It doesn't match up perfectly because the texture is a little bit different, but it matches up enough because this is going to be dark on this perimeter here. So I just need kind of a line to match up like that. This one's a little bit different. I made it kind of these converging lines like that, and I'm going to place this lady on horse right up here at the convergence right there, and I want those leading lines to go in there. So using this one, as opposed to, if you're familiar with the line ledge, okay, ledge is a awesome stamp, or boulders with lichen for the same type of thing going on, but I really want those leading lines to draw the viewer's attention into the scene. the use of those, kind of that vanishing point perspective within the texture. Okay, so that's going to be right there, and I thought something that could be very dramatic would be to put this moon right behind her. Okay, now one of the color schemes that I haven't worked with in a while is this brown color scheme that I really like. And it's a pretty simple one, okay? And it's just, I think I need another tan. My other pad here, which was pale orange, used to go right in this kind of mix. I don't really need the pad. I'll see if I have the re-inker for it. But what I do is I use these two colors for most of my imagery, kind of a dark brown, and this one's just called brown. If you're familiar with the Distress line of inks, kind of a dark brown and maybe like a walnut stain would do, something like that. So just, you don't have to be brand and line specific, okay? It's just go with the type of ink, which is dye-based inks, and go with the dark and kind of a medium tone brown. If you're going to follow up and do, something similar and you want this same color scheme, you can always kind of alter it. I'm all for alterations and kind of playing around with different color schemes and whatnot, and I don't know, making it your own. If I didn't have these colors, I would change it from, I don't know, this color scheme. Okay, so this is the Cloud with Rising Moon large stamp, and I'm just going to go for a little bit of variation in here, meaning I have colored it with that brown, that medium tone brown. Now I'm going into it with this darker brown, kind of in a streaky kind of configuration. All right, now this woman is going to be down here on her horse, looking up at this kind of this grand sky. Hopefully it's grand. So see this area right down here where it's really dark? I can't have that dark right there. I want it to be pretty light, okay? Because I want her silhouette to stand out really well against this. So, and one of the things that I do is I like to make my moons kind of look like they're glowing. So around the perimeter of this with a dry paper towel, you can see I'm removing a lot of that ink, okay? It'll look funny when I stamp it out because the impression is going to be kind of muddled down here. But it's all for the purpose of kind of what I'm kind of building up to in the end result. Okay, let me see how high she's going to go. Put this moon right about like so, I think. This is what we call kind of in a composition dramatic balance. I'm going to make this structure very kind of rigid and formal with this stack of lunar imagery. Okay, and that's the thing that I mentioned that I haven't really done before. I haven't used this configuration of images like this before. So many moons, and you can use any kind of sky figures, but I just happen to have a lot of moons, so I'm going to do that. Just different ones. Okay, I'll go with that one there, and maybe another one up here. So maybe I might be able to fit more. Let me see, I'll go with that one right there. Let me see, I have some smaller ones too. I want to go with several. Just kind of curious to see how these would look. There's different types of kind of shapes for the moon as well. I'm going to try to line them up roughly like this without, I don't want to, I'm not really interested in measuring things. I can just kind of roughly line them up like so. This one's probably, I think I was pretty close in terms of, kind of centering it. Let me see, I have one more moon too. I think I could fit right up there. Let me grab that. Okay, I have those two, and I have this little glowing orb one right here that'll fit right in there. I'll have to see if I can line those up. And if it doesn't, then so be it. It's not the end of the world. And I always just go with whatever's kind of happening on the piece. Okay, this is another couple of values of brown. It's this one. What is this one here? It's burnt umber. I always remember using that color of paint in my painting classes. I don't know if they gave us a list of colors we were supposed to buy. Maybe. It was always like burnt umber, and what else was there? Sienna. Yeah. Lead white, I think. I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Does that look roughly about even? I think so. Even enough. Okay. I am using this paper here, and I'm getting these little bumps that happened in my last scene too. Let me just add some texture in there. I think it's this big paper that I'm working on. I think I got it out of there. Anyways. 11 by 17 paper seems to be something on it. Okay. Burnt umber and dark brown. You might deduce from my number of kind of different types of moons that I kind of like sky figures. I can never have enough sky figures. Moons, stars, deep space things like nebula, and different types of Hubble types of imagery. I love it all. Some of the most kind of memorable times. I wouldn't say exhilarating or anything like that, but growing up in college and from my just general ed classes, taking things like astronomy, and one of the things was going on assignment one weekend, or I don't know, not the whole weekend, but overnight, and taking star shots up in Mount Palomar, which is a Southern California mountain with that has an observatory up there, but there's also a couple state campgrounds, and that's where the kind of the local kind of astronomy club in Los Angeles and kind of Orange County and probably San Diego, I'm sure, they all kind of meet up at the okay, I'm kind of putting my finger right on the middle, right there, where that will be. Try to line that up. But anyways, setting up our own astropods and taking photographs. And in high school, my friend got a kind of a telescope. Didn't have a tracking system, electronically that would compensate for the Earth's rotation. So it's just a matter of getting the sky figure, in your sights and trying to track it, with a couple attachments as it moved, and those things move pretty fast when you have that type of magnification. But just going up there and checking out the moon or things like Saturn and Jupiter, and being able to see the moons around Jupiter is really a kind of good times. I always enjoyed it. Okay, now this doesn't look like anything. It looks, I don't know, it looks like a sloppy mess right now. But hopefully we can bring it all together, and hopefully it does come together. I'm confident that it will. I've seen this type of development before. We have our Cloud Cumulus stamp right here, okay? This is going to be a lot of kind of what brings this all together. Okay, this is going to be kind of a perimeter-oriented application of this. I'm going with a pretty dark brown here, okay? Now, this cloud has the top billows illuminated. Okay, it's top lit, all right? So what I'm doing is I'm going to be wiping off this ink on that edge right there, okay? And I also have this cloud where it's going to be pointing towards my light source. So if it's over on this side of the scene, then the clouds will be facing this way. This is the illumination is coming from over here. So when I put the cloud over here, the illumination is going to be coming from the opposite side. So I'm going to turn and make my impressions accordingly, okay? If the cloud is going to be up here, then you bottom light those clouds and you turn them that way. Okay? So anyways, that being said, you want to overlap, if need be, into the other imagery. But this is going to be more perimeter oriented, so let me just do this really fast here. Every time I re-ink, I'll just wipe off that area, kind of facing my light source. It isn't 100% necessary to wipe off your stamp. It just kind of makes it, it gives the blending process, it just makes it a little bit easier for those clouds to blend in to additional impressions, especially if they're going to be lighter. And I am going to be making some lighter impressions of this as well. Okay. You don't have to mix things so symmetrical either. Don't make it like this, okay, where it's just edge to edge, okay? I'm going to change it around a little bit and vary it slightly. So you can see I stamped it like that. The previous one was like this. The other one was like this. See how I'm kind of changing the angle? Don't change it like 90 degrees again, because then you're thinking about this like a brick or something like that, okay? So while this is a rectangle, don't think of it in terms of being applied like a rectangle. These aren't puzzle shapes that we're kind of merging together. It's much more fluid than that, okay? And that's the thing about it. With landscape stamping, you have to think about not the perimeters, which a lot of people get locked into because they've kind of, from their experience, they're using imagery that's primarily linear, okay? They're light and they're made of line, okay? Tonal images that have been kind of, they're meant to be merged together. You can't think of their edges as kind of like fixed points by which to kind of run things into, okay? You want things much more fluid, okay? So things are merging and overlapping and the angles are changing and whatnot. Okay, my paper towel is a lot thicker than I think it is, you know, so I need to go down here a little bit more. It has this texture on it, okay? This padded texture. So when I went like that, it left me that kind of ghosting image, okay? So I need to go much farther down like that so I can get right to it, okay? All right. Okay. So back to placement of imagery. It's the easiest type of imagery to do. It's the easiest types of composing you can do. But because it's different, people tend to think it's hard. They have it set in their head because they can't see the lines. It's a harder process, but in reality, it's much easier. I don't have to have all these masks and things like that, and careful placement of images. There's plenty of leeway that you can, utilize. I'm overlapping between an eighth of an inch to a full inch, or so, probably. I'm not even paying really attention to it. All I'm paying attention to is if I'm overlapping adequately. Okay, I don't want to go like that again with the second impression right over it, but anywhere from here, 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 here. You know what I mean? It's anywhere in there, and it's kind of a strange concept, I know, because I've taught this for many, many years, and I've seen people in class, but believe me, it takes them like, I don't know, 15 seconds to kind of figure it out. It's when they just do it for the first time, then it's like, oh, okay. And they're really kind of surprised when they do that. It's like, oh, okay. They don't believe until they see it, I guess, until they do it. Which is always a fun moment. Never get tired of seeing people doing that. Or they would say something like, "Hey, I don't have to mask anymore." Well, you do if you have to if you go back to kind of linear designs, then the masking is certainly something that probably should be utilized in terms of overlapping things or merging things together, but I don't know. Scenic stamping is a way to take a little bit of a break from that. Okay, so I am bringing in some more clouds into here. I was thinking about doing it in a lighter tone, but I might need to do it in a bit of a darker tone, because I stamped these fairly dark, or maybe I'll just bring some. Now see this right here? I'm kind of overlapping this whole portion right here, right? It goes like that, but you can just come right in here, like so. There you go. But if you want to make it easy, wiping off even more, even though taking it, inking it up and stamping, that's not like hard. Okay, coming in here like that. What am I looking for? I don't want to overlap my moons in here, so I can come in here, whatever. As long as you're just kind of getting in there and bringing that cloud into that. See that incorporation of those designs? And then this is not even, I haven't even used my coloring yet too, so the color is going to be the thing that really starts bringing everything together even more so. Okay. But boy, that sure looks weird right now. We really need some additional color applications to kind of bring this all together and for it to make kind of sense. It's not going to make sense in terms of a kind of realistic look. It's supposed to be more of like a representation, maybe, different phases of something like that. Who knows, if you're a, I don't know, a Star Trek fan or something like that, maybe it's a different planet, who knows. Or maybe it's just, kind of more of a representation of time or something like that. I don't know. It could be anything. It's all up to your interpretation. I don't have some kind of a notion of what it's supposed to be. I'm just trying to come up with an interesting visual that's dramatic and within the theme of the this month's challenge with the Facebook group. Okay, so this is a lot of area to cover, like I mentioned in my previous video, if you're watching these videos, but when I have a lot of real estate like this to cover, right, I just find it easier just to use a reinker, okay? Now, I'm going to be running through really warm tones into the brown tones, so I use these brown tones here to stamp out my imagery. But I stamped them in fairly dark colors because the color scheme that I'm going to be using in here is something like this. I could use an orange in there. I don't know if I want to do that. Something bright like that. I could use, let's see, here's a distress ink and a walnut stain as well. We can go with something like this. This walnut stain would go in there too. We might as well, try them out. But this desert sand right here is a fantastic kind of beige tone. I don't have a reinker for this one though, so I do have a reinker for my peach Bellini seashells. I don't remember what name they changed that to. They might have kept the peach Bellini name convention for the Adirondack Lights name change, branding change. Okay, but I don't remember. Okay, I'm looking for a clean cap here. I'm just going to pour some of this into my cap here. Alright, so yeah, this is a moon scene, but not all moons have to be kind of a cool blue type of scheme. This is not like an image from kind of this world, or this, that I'm probably doing right here. But let's take a look at right here. Okay, now color schemes and lighting schemes, okay? The lighting scheme on this is one where I want, a lot of these clouds to be reflecting some of that light from these moons right here. So the moons themselves are going to be fairly light, okay? Those are going to be my light sources in the scene, alright? So I'm going to be careful when I'm toning in here not to tone out my light sources, okay? So it's all about kind of your light source and reflected light in this scene, alright? A couple scenes ago, this is about my light source and the lightning and the reflected light on those clouds. This will be somewhat similar. I do a little bit of a different color scheme though, okay? Alright, now I think I had some other tone in here, so this isn't exactly that peach Bellini. Peach Bellini is a little bit lighter, but it's okay. I'll just kind of go in here and I'll go between these moons so that you kind of stand out a little bit more, kind of when you're working on these types of pieces, stamp pieces, or any type of artwork, unless you're working with like LED lights or something like that, where you're actually using lighting, okay? Lighting in other types of non-actual light functionality or usages is the use of shadow to depict that lighting, okay? So, if I darken the area around my light sources, or what will end up being my light sources, then they will seem lighter by contrast, okay? So, it doesn't mean that I want them. I don't always want them just stark white like that. I think it looks odd sometimes. So sometimes most of the times I'll come over with a little bit of streak of some color or something like that. Okay. Now here's where it's going to get a little bit tricky. A little, not a lot. It's on my clouds here, okay? Now, I usually make my perimeters pretty dark, okay? So I'll just start off with that right now. I'll just kind of go around like this, and all the clouds on the perimeter are going to be darker, so let's just go in and do that. Okay, really light touch with my brush here. I'm not scrubbing back and forth or anything like that. This is where the re-inker kind of makes things go a little bit faster, or actually a lot faster. When you're dabbing into an ink pad, especially with a really light color, you're, a few taps and it's dry on our applicator. But going with this re-inker, this thing is really, really full of ink. So I get a lot of coverage doing that, because it turns this, in a sense, into a pad on a stick, so it's like a really moist pad that you'd have in here. It'd be like a cat's eye or something like that, those, you know, those smaller pads. It'd be like almost as if you're, you know, snapping a holder onto the pad and just using the pad itself, okay? That's what the kind of the process of this is similar to. Okay, this rock down here, kind of giving it some tone as well. Alright, so let's kind of do the same thing on this side that we did on the other side. I'm kind of going along this perimeter here, and I'm leaving the interior side of these clouds light, so that you have light source, and you have some areas of reflected light. It's really easy to tone everything out, okay? But that can be done with your lighter tones. It just kind of, when you move into your darker tones, you want to be careful about that. But going back to that, I mean, if you can, you just have to kind of watch it. I mean, nothing's going to get darker that you never touch, so you just be a little bit kind of, you know, just conscientious of your placement. And see, I'm going really light with a very light touch here, just to be careful not to just color everything. A lot of times when people get kind of the feel of this, and it doesn't take long, you know, everyone's kind of done some sponging before or whatnot, they get the feel of it, and it gets really comfortable. But it's usually in those darker colors. Sometimes they get, you know, oops, I have, you know, a big oval shape sitting in the middle of my scene, you know. And it's not because they do it with, you know, the lightest color. You can just blend it right out, but sometimes it's with like black or something like that. So just kind of get the feel of it, and just kind of use it accordingly. I would say use a lighter touch, and to get kind of a darker area, just use repetition more than scrubbing too. Okay, never scrub with these. I like to use it in one direction. That's why I'm always turning my card, you see, or scene. I don't think this is going to be a card. But I just turn it in the direction that's the most conducive for this one direction type of stroke. Okay. Alright, so let's get our perimeter fairly moist, because that area is going to be taking in a lot of ink. Okay, well, it's just one color. I really used way too much ink right here. I don't know. I got a lot more coverage than I thought I was going to get from that one inking of this. My little figure is going to be at the top of this, so I'm going to darken up that top a little bit more. Okay. But kind of doing this process right here, this type of ink addition, I don't know, I hope it makes sense though. Kind of the wetter you have this, kind of spreading out kind of a puddle of something, you know, water or whatever. Just think of it like, I don't know, you know, if you're familiar with spreading something around, you know, car polish on a car, I don't know, anything like that. The more liquid you have on something, the easier it is going to be to spread, and you know, some kind of applicator or something won't kind of grab on something that's, you know, fairly dry, like a piece of paper that's absorbent will, if you have it kind of moist like that. So see, I'm able to really spread this out. one of my techniques that I often use, that I tell people to use, is this one right here. With your first color ink, you can even just kind of squeeze it out like this, and you get this puddle, and then you just kind of drag that in. And it's really easy as far as an application process to do that type of movement with so much ink. All right, that is that. I have to figure out something to do with that ink right there. There's too much. Okay, let's move to our next tone. Let's make this. I'm kind of going through in my head. Do I want something that bright there? Let's do a kind of a fusion. Let's go with this mustard seed right here, and the distress. I'm just going to keep using this. I don't know. Maybe I should squeeze it out a little bit. There's so much of that peach Bellini in there. Okay. All right, even though I did that, there's still going to be quite a bit in here, but so be it. It's really quite bright there, isn't it? That yellow. It's got a little bit more of an earthy yellow tinge to it, such as, all of the Distress inks, which is their characteristic. They're a little bit more earthy in hue. Certainly more earthy than like Marvy colors, which are kind of designed to be just really bright. All right, let's go ahead and just do this yellow in here. I wasn't going to do all, so much of this, but kind of that brightness will kind of lend itself to the drama of the piece, or this dramatic kind of a scenario. I won't mind bringing some of this into my moons too. Okay, so it's my second color, but it'll still be one of my lighter colors. Okay, and it makes sense that if this is the kind of the general color scheme that I'm using in this piece as a whole, then it stands to reason that my light sources within this scene are the ones that are casting that hue, that type of that same light, and we're just seeing the other things in the scene reflecting that same light being cast. Okay. I am keeping some of that white, though. Little touches of it here and there. Now, because I used so much of that first ink, the second ink is really gliding really beautifully on this surface, because the pulp of the paper is a little bit damp, so... Add a lot around the perimeter. Can kind of see the color or the lighting scheme in this developing, or being, I guess, substantially developed by now. You can see the kind of the light sources standing out, and you can see the areas of reflected light in the clouds shining back. this piece, for me, is really going to start coming together when I go back, when I get all the way up to this dark brown, because this dark brown is the color that I stamped the scene in. Okay. Alright, this is yellow. This is just the Marvy yellow. This, I'm pretty impressed with this mustard seed. This mustard seed is looking pretty bright and vibrant on this scene. But I happen to think that Marvy tones are some of the most, if probably the most bright inks out there on the market. See that? Even as bright as that mustard seed was, the Marvy just, there is such a strong, vibrant quality to them. If you want your scenes to really kind of pop, it's not a bad idea to throw in, even if it was like 2 or 3 colors of Marvy, like reinkers. Like this pink, yellow right here, a pinker, and a blue might be a good one. You don't even need to go with the pad because you're not going to be stamping imagery out in this color. You're just going to be using it to to color some of your scenes with a partial. So this area right here, let's lay down some of that. Can you see that kind of that intensity right there? Yeah, just kind of, as you're doing this, just be mindful of kind of where you might want to retain some of those lighter areas. Doesn't mean that you can't go into them, if you deem, that's too much lightness or something like that. You can certainly, do that. You can go in there. Like I'm kind of adding some more of this yellow right here. I think it looks pretty good. So I'm kind of getting rid of some of that white in there. But coming along, okay, let's hit this area down here, this whole kind of rocky bluff here. Okay, that looks good for that. Here I have this kind of lid here for this one right here. This is ochre. It's kind of within that color scheme, right? A little bit more of an orangey tinge. Let's go in here like so. Kind of making my perimeter a little bit darker now. This ochre is not a mid-tone. I'd classify it as one of the lighter tones. It's maybe like I don't know, if there was a light, medium, and dark, then the lights would be like 0 to 30%, maybe 30 to 60. I don't know, 65% might be medium tones, or maybe all the way up to 70, I don't know. And then 70 to 100 would be your darkest of tones. So this ochre is still fairly light in the value scale within this given color scheme. Being careful around my moons. I have to be careful too. It's easy for me to lose it too. That being said, whenever I'm seeing anything on these videos, I'm kind of reminding myself as well. Okay. Alright. Some of that gets into that color, and that's fine. Some of that peach Bellini, it's related to that color anyway. Okay, let's try the walnut stain here and see. Yeah, walnut stain looks pretty good. I always try whenever you're trying another color, kind of trying a little corner. It's darker than I thought. It's not too bad. I wasn't going to use very much of it, but it is making a difference on here, so I'm using more of it. Okay, coming in here. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's really starting to get kind of into those midtones in here. Maybe venturing into the darker tones. I'm not sure. It's probably more like a 50% gradation, maybe. Pretty rich though, and deep. All right. Okay, now let's start moving into this brown right here. This is the brown that I, stamped my imagery with before I kind of colored it in additionally. Some additional darker brown with the streaks on it. So this will be the color that, when you start getting into those same colors that you stamped your imagery in, that's when it starts to really bring it together, especially the darkest of colors. So, I used black and dark brown on here, so we'll see kind of a real kind of continuity and unity really starting to come together with those colors. You won't see them as dark as these because the page is just so wet, it's just not going to be as accepting of the ink as a dry piece of paper would, but it'll certainly influence it. And, I could wait for this to dry a little bit, but I'm not going to do that, because I just like to keep moving, and I like to take advantage of the slick surface of a freshly inked piece, because it makes the darker tones blend in to the surface much easier. See that right there? See how it's really dark, but watch this. See, I can just kind of come in here and just kind of really spread that around, just because it is just so inked up, and the pulp of the paper is starting to kind of get close to super saturation. I didn't like some of that yellow in there. I like it as an undercolor, but I think putting a little bit of tone into it kind of mellows it out a little bit. So sometimes you can get the brightness of a given color, okay, but without having the kind of the actual hue of it. So, like that yellow underneath here is really the thing that's making everything kind of glow more in terms of this color scheme. But I didn't like it just as is on there. Okay, I like it more, kind of a more mellow intensity maybe. Okay, that looks good for that. Finally, we're on our dark brown here. Alright. Let me clean house here a little bit. Let's go to this dark brown and see what it looks like. Okay, test from the corner. It's pretty dark, isn't it? See that? Really kind of spread it around. When you spread it around, it gets lighter. Kind of be a little bit more perimeter oriented at first. Get a feel for, you know, the ink that you're using, the value of it, the intensity and whatnot. And I usually start it off in the darker areas. Then I get a feel for it. Then as I'm utilizing kind of the drier version of it, that's when I kind of move into my lighter areas because I'm tapping off a smaller amount of that ink because it's almost like a dry brush type of application that I'm doing. Okay, and the rock down here. We really use a lot of boy. This rock is really moist. It's not like moist, you know, wet to the touch or something like that. Not sopping wet at least, but I can tell because as I add this like this, I can ink this up and like that, but it really just wipes off clean. So I'll have to do a little bit more kind of a tapping application of this to get it to really kind of build up on there, and then I'll just leave it as is, you know, once I get what I want. Okay. Maybe little streaks into this rock as well to kind of keep that vanishing point perspective kind of an integral part of the design. As dark as this goes, you don't see those lines as much, so that's why I'm kind of introducing some of those types of streaks. Okay, well, it got darker than I thought it would get. Alright, let's do the same type of thing around the perimeter. See if I can slip some of this really dark brown into my in between the moon imagery. Look at that, you know, kind of that darker application in between these kind of creates this kind of like a more, I don't know, smoldering, kind of illuminated intensity in some ways. When you move into your darker tones, this is where I was saying, yeah, like sometimes people, you know, they put in kind of an unintentional mark, you know, because the darker tones will stand out much, you know, stronger. But that's why I kind of try to move things, build things up nice and incrementally, so I don't kind of jump from something that's so light to something that's so dark, just in case I do kind of, you know, do some kind of stroke or something like that that's going to really stand out. Not that this is precarious or anything, I just don't want to get like something like that right in, you know, the middle of my moon or something like that. But otherwise, you know, when I'm doing this, I mean, I can, you know, it's not a precarious kind of exercise if you do it kind of in this process. That's why I do, you know, like to move things nice and incrementally and slowly, because it makes it a much... It makes it, I wouldn't say foolproof, but just the very fact that you're just kind of, you're bringing everything into resolution kind of incrementally. So imagine, people think this is really hard, is they think that, okay, if it was like a 10-step process, okay, and you're just taking something 1 to 2, you know what I mean? It becomes a little bit more of a precarious process, okay? But just imagine that you have a dial of, you know, 100 steps, okay? And they're much smaller steps. They're like baby steps. So working something from kind of like this yellow to this brown, it would be a big jump in value, right? But if you just kind of work things through your intermediate tones, you can mix and match or whatever, but see, these steps between these two are, you know, these two aren't too extreme, these two aren't too extreme, and these two aren't, you know, too extreme. Remember, I threw the walnut in between there too, I think. And then there was the mustard seed, you know what I mean? So I just kind of extend my process longer, which makes my steps much shorter, and it's not just for the sake of making things kind of less precarious. You benefit from all those colors that you've laid down on there. None of them have been wasted, even if you've covered them over, because those colors underneath are the things that are giving this piece the overall kind of layering and saturation and depth, because these inks are transparent inks, so they really layer and form a deep visual kind of a space. I mean, these are two-dimensional spaces that we're working on, but it gives the illusion of three-dimensionality, especially when you have all those different tones laid down in there. See that? And if I just did this brown alone, okay, it's this color brown. not this one right here. See how deep and rich that is? And it's because I have the colors all laid out underneath there. So nothing's wasted, you know, you're never kind of just doing some kind of pointless kind of exercise. Now, I mean, if I do use some color and I start applying it, and it's just so similar to the previous color, you know, where you can't see any change at all, then, well, yeah, then move up to your next color. But otherwise, you know, you're going to benefit from it, usually. Alright, so I'm layering all this down like so, okay? And we're getting pretty dark, but at this point in time, this is what I'm thinking here. I want to push my sky a step further, okay? In terms of that depth that we're talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cloud image, and I'll zoom in for this here too. I want to go even darker. We have it kind of lighter, darker out here from our use of different values of ink. Okay, so I've used a lot of the darker inks out here, and you know, hardly any like right in this area or something. Okay, so transitioning. Now this is one of the things I was doing in my previous lessons on value and intensity for the sake of depth and space, which I guess is the same thing, but oh, depth and lighting, sorry, can remember. But okay, so I have lighter values of brown up here, okay? I mean, even though it was a fairly dark one, but that's still going to be lighter than black, okay? So let's use this black right in here, and I'll use it kind of out here. Now I've wiped it off again. Remember that process? You can see it's kind of wet there. And I'll just bring this right in here. So hopefully it'll look like this cloud, this darker cloud, is a little bit closer to us because it is darker. Things that are lighter, similar things in the distance are usually lighter. Okay, anyway, you see that cloud right there? See that? Look at that space there in terms of the depth now. Okay, now we'll do that all the way around. Don't forget to kind of turn it, you know, the way that the lighting is being cast from. Now remember, when I stamp this out, it's not going to be white like that. It's going to be the color that's already underneath here. Okay, that's one side of it right there. Hopefully it's looking, there's a kind of an inherent drama in here. Okay, let's see. I'm tempted to bring one in here because it's darker in this in here and a little bit lighter out here. So where this area is going to overlap that area, I'll wipe off a good portion of it. And let's come in here. And we'll see how that looks. I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah, it kind of gets a little bit of that texture in here, right up there. Okay, you see it right out here, and not there. Down here. I think that's about right. Okay, now, because we did that, what I'll do is I'll take my stylus tool, okay, and with that color, now, black, I will tone, I'll blend in those clouds a little bit. Not trying to blend them out. I'm just kind of going around the perimeter a little bit and using that same color to create some additional shadows, because there's additional shadows that have been stamped out in that color. So I'm just going in there and reiterating it a little bit more. And remember that the darker you take some area of your scene, the lighter the other areas are going to appear by contrast. I'm not making these lighter, I'm just making an area in the scene darker, which in turn makes them seem lighter. It's one of those kind of little illusion tricks, you know. They'll have a certain like gray next to white, and that same value of gray on a black piece of paper, and they'll say, which gray is lighter? And a lot of people think, well, they know it's a trick question, but when they see something like that, but, you know, that gray swatch next, you know, against black looks much, much lighter by contrast, and the one, that gray swatch that's by on top of white is going to look much darker, of course. Okay, so let's put some of this up on this little ridge right here. Put a lot of this ridge in shadow. Really anchoring this ledge down with with a pretty heavy application of this black now. Okay. I'm going to do a little masking here around some of these clouds, maybe to give it a little bit more kind of depth within these this given space. And I just ripped paper towel type of masking. Alright, I think that is... I was going to say I think that was adequate. Let me put a little perimeter around this area, just to kind of close it off a little bit more and contain the composition. Okay. I think I want to do something. This area down here is looking just too static for me. So I think doing some trees around here would be in order. The thing that's going through my head is I'm kind of just wondering how full I want these trees. I have my pine like this. I might want something kind of more bold. Let me grab a couple other pine trees and I'll see. Okay, just put that figure down there for measurement's sake. I have these two pine trees. This one's the spruce and this one's Pines and Rocks small. I thought maybe doing some pines behind the ridge, and then the larger one in front would be kind of a good way to do it here. Yeah, I'll just leave that. It's actually going to go this way, of course. But okay, let's just do this one in Marvy ink. Marvy black. I'll be doing the really close ones in a VersaFine. But I'm going to keep the VersaFine until the end. Alright, so I've masked off my ridge, so hopefully these... I need to give a lot more pressure right around that mask. I didn't realize these paper towels are so thick. I guess they're supposed to be so that they're they, absorb and pick up easier. Let me take a peek. Okay, perfect. All right, there, and about over here. Okay, mask off that. Right here, I want that silhouette to really stand out pretty strong, so I'm going to keep away from that figure with these trees, okay? Alright. I'm usually not so careful. I'm a little paranoid now. Okay. That figure will go right in here, so... I'm trying to think if I want to stamp her right now or later. Let's do it right now. At no point in time is it a great time to ink something on and drop your stamp there, right? But I would say especially at this point in time. If I was to drop a stamp there and it would leave a kind of a unintentional imprint, I mean, there's not a lot that I could do about it, but in scenic stamping, instead of it being a figure right there, I just put a big tree of it, yeah, so suddenly there's this whole forest down here of, you know, trees and stuff like that, and I'd put something else up there in the sky, you know. That's the beauty of scenic stamping. You can always just cover it up with something and have it look kind of purposeful. I don't need to press this hard, but I want that ink to really transfer onto the scene. Not that that moon had a lot of ink on there, but I just want a really nice, deep, dark image. Okay. Hopefully there's a little bit of a kind of a dramatic feel to that at this point in time. Let's take a look at it and see what it looks like on the overall. Okay, let's go in and let's make use of some of our other media that we have. Okay, let me grab a couple pens that are in the same spirit as the colors that I've laid down. Here we have a apricot and camel and potato brown. Okay. But let's go in here and I can do some things. I can put a little bit of shading on some of these little rocks. Alright. Let me clear some area out here. Alright, what I'm doing is... this one's a little bit too dark. I want to do some kind of shading in some of these individual rocks down here. Just where some of these rocks are a little bit darker than others. I just want to go in and reiterate it with some tone. Okay, now that horse is looking a little anemic right now, so I'm going to go and add some tone to that. The lady on her horse. Okay. Here's the camel. We'll color our horse with camel. Okay. So remember, if you have imagery in your scenes that you've stamped out and everything is in, you know, a given kind of value scheme and intensity, don't leave your main subject matters kind of bare. You know, go in and bring that same richness into everything that you have there and match it in terms of the intensity. It doesn't have to be the same color scheme, but try to match it, otherwise there's going to be a little bit of a kind of a mismatching kind of finish to the scene. Alright, now I'm just going to tweak things a little bit. I'm going to, now you won't see like a different color in here, but I am going to put a little bit of blue there on our jeans, you know, just to tweak things a little bit. I do love blue in these color schemes. Like this is a pale blue right here. It almost doesn't look like anything. But I like bringing a little bit of that blue into an otherwise warm color scheme, okay? It's very, very subtle. If I didn't have that, I would use my salvia blue or something, or the ocean aqua Adirondack lights, or aqua Adirondack lights. Just a little slight bluish tinge, okay, that I'm adding. Alright, let's see. Color her dirty blonde hair, maybe, huh? Or something, I don't know, brown. Coloring some of my clouds, see that intensity right there? It really looks different though. When I spray this, everything will be a little bit more unified. But I'm just kind of adding some of this intensity in some areas, so that when I spray it and unify it, there'll be areas of, you know, extreme intensity. And these areas that are drying right here, I can see it's kind of losing some of the intensity and vibrancy, but when I spray it, it'll bring it back, it'll reintroduce it. But this is just another kind of a layer that you can kind of add in. It's not mixing with the dye-based inks, because this is alcohol ink right here, and it's not going to mix. I mean, if your alcohol ink was like super wet, if you stamped out an image and then, you know, went over it, it'll kind of, it might streak it or smear it a little bit. But otherwise, if it's set up, it's not going to mix and merge. Okay, so those, by the way, were some Le Plume Permanent pens by Marvy and some Shuttle Art pens. Okay. Alright, now I have some other trees to bring in here, but one of the things that I find that's kind of fun to do is I like to bring in kind of this graphic element into some scenes like this. I love things like star charts and whatnot. And I can kind of bring in something of that spirit into the scene. And I think we'll do something like that. We'll use a white gel pen and a compass. And hopefully we can kind of introduce something kind of interesting into the mix. This, to me, is fairly interesting, but I'm going to give it a little bit more structure, okay? If I can. Alright, this is a I think this is called a compound compass or something like that. And it's where kind of this thing right in here, one of these legs come out like that. And then I bought separately this universal media holder. I've seen some compasses are sold with a universal kind of holder, but I'm not quite sure how large those holders are. This one's pretty large. You can hold kind of your crafting style media in here. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this pen can, not quite. But there's some larger things like gel pens will fit in here. Okay, not just some kind of smaller like drafting pencils or something of that sort. All right, let me see. Is this one working well? Uniball Signo pen looks like it's working fantastic. Let's throw this into the universal holder. Oops, I didn't anchor that down hard enough here. Okay, this little screw thing. Oh, I didn't screw it in at all. Okay. All right. Swing that out like so. Throw the pen in. I want to get it roughly the same height as this. Let me move this up a little bit. Like so. Tighten that up as well. And then this little thing screws in right here. I know I'm not focused on this. See if I can focus. Is everything's still, this camera still, lens is still focused on my paper. Let me see if I can get it. Okay, here we go. This thing kind of screws in. There's this little dial thing, and this screws in, and you want to lock your media down. Okay, all right. Okay, and all right, so we have this compass. I can draw my circles or whatever. Like that. And that's what I'll do. I'm going to focus my my circles around these moons. I'll probably do it as, this moon down here is the focus. I guess I could go with, I don't know, one of these ones up here. Alright, this is this little thing that kind of helps me just move this in and out kind of easier, rather than just taking this and doing it little by little. Let me say this right here. If I do it this one, or if I kind of focus on this one down here, what I'm doing is I think I'm going to try to create a relationship between this moon and this moon. I'll kind of go from the center of this one to the center of this one. So if I go like that, there's that moon, and then that moon way up there, I can go like that, and do another circle like that. Okay, this one I'm off the page over here. This one, I didn't quite center this, so let me kind of move this over a little bit more. Okay, that's the edge of that. And let me go over here a little bit more. What I'm doing is I'm trying to find the center of this, so if I do a circle kind of out here and come around, I want this to hit this right on the edge of this paper. Okay, boy, I need a little bit more real estate though. I'm going to have to kind of extend this out a little bit more. I'm kind of extending this pen out here a little bit more so I can kind of reach a little bit farther. I'm usually not doing such big circles, but... Okay. I'm wondering if I might need to do the, my foreground trees here first before I do these circles, because I don't want these circles to go in front of it. And I'm not quite so confident in the VersaFine completely covering my gel pen marks. The gel pen mark might show through. I want, one of the things I yearn for in this industry is true opacity. I want white pigment inks to be really white and opaque, so if I stamp white over something, it'll look just absolutely covered. And I want a black that's going to really just be really black and pretty much cover up anything you want. Now VersaFine's kind of getting there, but sometimes I'll stamp it over something it's not quite as solid as I want. Okay, so this is going to... I'd rather not do this right now, but I want to be able to work around these trees, so... And the reason I say that is because this takes a little bit of time to dry, and I'm going to have to be kind of mindful that I don't kind of smear these as I do the rest of my things on this scene. Okay. One spruce large. I think maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 more maybe. Go like this on the perimeter out here. It's kind of framing off our figure there. Okay, let's go with another one. Let's change height, okay? That is a really wet, dark image. Whew. I love it, but I will have to be pretty careful that I don't touch it too much, or touch it at all. It sets up in about a day or so. I don't know, sometime overnight it dries for me. Okay. Let's go for an odd number. Usually stamping things in odd numbers. Kind of a little bit more what's the word? It's a little bit more graceful in terms of, for compositional reasons, doing things in kind of odd numbers. My moons aren't on odd numbers, but I ran out of space. But these trees right here, just, I stamped them in, a grouping of 5 here. 4 looked a little bit too symmetrical. Okay. So anyways, we have our trees down here. Kind of, I've left some space in here for, see, I've already touched that one right there. It's kind of left a little bit of space there for the viewer to enter the scene. All right. Wow. I always look forward to kind of doing that. VersaFine kind of foreground, but kind of in the end, but I'll have to do it right now because I need to know where to put these lines. Okay, so go down here, go down right here. All right. Alright, so let's go ahead and do it. seems weird for doing these kind of overlays over over the stamped imagery and colored imagery, but it would be like you doing something and, you know, taking a pen and writing over it in white. You know, it's putting an overlay of it, you know, another texture over the top of it. Okay, there's a couple spots in here that I can kind of continue this line. And we'll say that it's going down to the that ridge, that rocky ridge. Okay, so we have one. I'm closing this in to get to the center of this other moon. Right there. Oops. And I'll come like here. And I'm kind of being mindful of that tree back there. Kind of going through it a little bit. The tree down here, I meant. So it's supposed to be these lines I'm saying are supposed to be kind of like a, I don't know, you know what I mean? This, like I said, this thing is kind of more, the scene in general is kind of more representational, I think. Okay. Look at that, though. It's a little off center. My moon isn't quite centered, but there's that. And I just cannot, I can't extend this, I don't think, in it. I don't know if I'd want to come up with another line over there anyway. Although I could. It doesn't look too bad. Or I can come up with a different circle up there, but... Alright, let me see if I can do this, if it's even an option. Sometimes you can't kind of draw with a pen, you know, if it's at, you know... Whoa! At such an angle. Let me see if I can do this here. I have to extend out all the way. All right. Alright, where was my center again? Let me see if I can see where that it poked into the piece. Okay, I think it's right there. Yeah, let me make sure. I need to find out if I have the correct... Okay. Usually when I'm doing this, there's a little point down here, a little hole that kind of forms in that. Alright, I think I can reach up there. There it is, right there. Let me see if the pen will work. Drawing it at this angle. Okay, not too bad. As I kind of go over it a little bit, though, I'm kind of going over a dry, dry gel, and it's kind of crumbling, but I think I got a clean enough line. All right, so we have these concentric circles here. Phew! I think it looks fairly interesting. Okay. It certainly brings the focus of attention down to her, don't you think? Because it's kind of emanating, you know, from that figure. All right, let me see here what this would do here. Okay, and I had that concentric circle. Starting from right here. So what if I came up this way? Maybe smaller. Sometimes I like to kind of create kind of a relationship with the edge of the page, or maybe the top of the page like this. Let's go like something like this. Now this is the part where I have to kind of just imagine in my mind what something like this will look like. Which I'm not sure if I want to do or not. Or I'll just try to find some other kind of relationships, like here's these 3 moons up here. Maybe that'll be the one, the connection for this. Maybe I can go with that line right there and come down here. That doesn't quite intersect that line right here. I don't know. Let me think about this one. I might just want that. I can have some other things going in. All right, let me think about this one for a bit. Okay, I have decided to not add any more concentric circles. I felt that it might detract from kind of, this is the visual focal point. If I kind of did another kind of targeted area up here, it would kind of compete with the visuals down here. Okay, I need to be careful about this really wet thing. But anyways, I have these books like the Cartography of North America. I love this type of book and maps, and I can't believe it's only $13 when I bought it, but it has like illustrations. It's mostly of land masses and whatnot, but I really like these Atlas Universalis. This one's using the illustrating the Copernican astronomical system, and here's another one right here. Tycho Brahe's astronomical system taken from the Atlas Universalis, published by the German mapmaker Cellarius in 1660. But there's some really cool kind of solar system types of I don't know, whatever grids and whatnot kind of laid out in here. Talking about the I don't know, all kinds of things, stars and alignments and the gravitational fields. But I love that type of thing. So in order to kind of introduce kind of that type of spirit of that type of thing, what I'm going to do is on these lines right here, I've lined them up with these moons right here. This is, that was kind of a afterthought, not to think of these things, as you do, before you do it. In order to plan, plot things out, that would kind of drive me nuts. So I just kind of let things happen. And I've done these things before, so that, that this isn't like a new type of thing for me. I did it one time. The first time I did it was when I had this assignment for a stamper sampler, and Kelleen, publisher, asked me if I would like to do a spread, and I wanted to do it. I didn't just do it with Stampscapes. I figured that book is for, just general cards, so I tried to incorporate a lot of different images with my own scenes, because that's what I do, but I used a lot of different types of imagery from other companies and whatnot, but I don't know, I had my compass there, and I don't know, just kind of in the spirit of some of those different types of images I was using, I used that compass in a white paint pen at the time, and kind of did these little kind of graphical things, and that's when I really started kind of incorporating some of the other types of things that I really like to do. My own aesthetics. I really love kind of a deep space imagery and graphs and maps and things like that. And I started to incorporate it in with my stamp scenery, that I was doing at the time. So it was really fun. Okay, so I'm putting these little kind of like, I don't know, whatever planetoid types of things on here. Other way, it could just be seen as like a texture on here too, in the form of kind of some of these larger dots around here. But I feel that doing it kind of gives a little bit of kind of a substantial, or not substantial, but a substance to these lines. It's saying that there's something, that they're there for kind of more of a, purpose, I guess, having kind of something kind of hanging on them or strung to them, like this. And I'll make some of them kind of glow with that, white pigment ink as well. But, it's like the girl who loved the moon, maybe this is someone that, they really like the gazing up at the stars, on their horse and going out for midnight rides and whatnot. So this is kind of putting the universe kind of at her, right in her grasp, It's like the universe belongs to her. When she's out, everything's right. Kind of things are kind of, everything's in harmony, All she needs is her, give her a moonlit night and the stars, and, she and that horse are good. Okay, so I go like that. As I do this, some of this paper is a little bit sticky from that alcohol ink. When it dries, it's not sticky anymore. But okay, so we have these little dots like that. Okay, now it probably wouldn't be happening, but on a moonlit night, you probably wouldn't see stars. But like I said, this is more kind of a representational of a piece in terms of the meaning of it. So in other words, I can do whatever I want. So I'm putting some little stars out here. Maybe this is the outer galaxy as you move kind of farther away, or something like that. So I can do these little overlays in terms of my textures. Kind of when I'm doing something like stars, I kind of like to group them a little bit, because I have to kind of break out of this kind of inherent pattern that I think a lot of us have, is if we're starting to do something like this, we tend to fall into wanting to do kind of a pattern. So, I don't know, everyone's kind of inherent thing that I've seen is they space everything out like between an eighth and a quarter inch from apart from each other. So I'm just trying to be mindful and kind of cluster it a little bit more, and do things a little bit more, I don't know, I wouldn't call it random, but slightly more kind of random in spirit. Let's see, doing these types of textures, doesn't it kind of add a kind of a more interesting kind of element into the mix? I mean, we have that kind of a deep color there, but you kind of have these on there like so, and it gives it this kind of other dimension type of feel. It's like something's almost kind of suspended. Alright, now, I mean, we have all kinds of colors of gel pens too, so we've certainly used yellow in here. Here's my shuttle art white pen. This one was the Uniball Signo, which is more opaque. And with the shuttle art one, it's much, much more translucent. So the color underneath shows 3, so I can get it kind of a deeper, or not a deeper, but a darker kind of addition to into the mix, and sometimes it looks like those stars might be farther away. Let's do something too. Let's play around with something. Let's go with a little bit of a blue here. Blue kind of seems strange. We haven't used that color, but it's good to kind of add in a different color into the mix sometimes, just to make it kind of more interesting. Alright, let me see here. Alright, I need to adjust here. I need to adjust the exposure of this. It's getting very, the scene is a lot darker now. Okay. When I'm stamping on a white piece of paper, the camera, I have to adjust it I have to overexpose, but now this scene is much darker, so this is more the color that, we're looking at here, but this little, can you notice the blue amongst those white ones up there? It just adds kind of a more kind of interesting, varied palette, out there in the universe. What do they call them? Not color shifts, but they can kind of tell what a planet is comprised of, in terms of the type of gas, because it has a different color on the, whatever that spectrum, which is kind of interesting. Here's red here, or orange. It's a red giant, maybe. Red giants, what is it? Red giants and white dwarves or something? Okay, maybe not too much of that, because that one really stands out. Alright, now let me see which one of my gold pens are working. Hopefully all of them. Yeah, that one worked. Let me see, this is my old Uniball Signo pen. What happened there? It worked and then it stopped. It seems like it wouldn't work and should start. Okay, here's my other Uniball Signo. This one's a little bit smaller. I think that one was a 1.0. I think this one's a 0.7 in terms of the ball width. I love using gold within a kind of a gold space, golden color scheme. Okay. So it's kind of, it changed, it introduced another texture into the mix, which is kind of nice. We had a lot of area in here, and let's face it, a lot of it was, all this space up here, hopefully it was kind of visually interesting, but it was a little bit monotonous. So this is a way to go back in here and add a different texture to it. I have this gold pen right here, and on these lines right here, why don't we add some kind of gold and kind of a orbiting. That's what the word I was looking for before. An orbit. I was looking at those books. These orbiting little cells, in different tones and whatnot. Okay. You see how wet these are right here? I don't know if you can tell. See that? All that glistening black versifying ink. Okay, let's add a little bit of highlights to some things in here. Let's see, some of these clouds are reflecting some of that light. So I can put a few little highlights on some, maybe. So those dots represent something else, in this area. Maybe I can use the same convention of the dot to represent something else in another area. Mainly reflections, Not quite a silver lining, but kind of. And I'm putting it on the top of the billow facing my light. I'm not doing it on these billows that are really dark out here, but kind of where they're in the light. I can add some of that. When I get up here, the clouds are bottom lit, so I'll put it on the bottom side of these clouds. It just depends on where the clouds are located. Okay, I think I'm still overexposed here. Okay, there we go. there's some light areas on these clouds, on the designs themselves, and I'm just going and kind of re-establishing it where I've added some tone over it. Not completely re-establishing it, but just kind of running some of this partially into it. Okay, let's take a look. This will look much better when sprayed too. Okay, let's see what we can do about kind of enhancing this even more, one step further. And let's take, it might be time for a new, no, I think I have a new side on my Q-tip here. Okay, let's grab some white pigment ink. This one's the Color Box Frost White. Okay. I also used the Hero Arts one. That was, someone gave me a tip on that one, the Unicorn. Let me try to use this one though, the Color Box. I found some more of my old workshop demo pads in a box, and it's sitting around for and I knew it. Yeah, it's been sitting around for like 8-10 years probably, and it's still sopping wet. Okay, I don't want that application of it for sure, so I'm kind of just tapping a lot of it off, and in doing so I'm kind of smashing the tip of this Q-tip down a little bit. Now don't load up like I just did. I had no idea how much ink was on my pad, and I'm guessing yours is probably fairly similar, unless you're just using your pad all the time, but most of us don't use a lot of white pigment ink, you know, all the time, unless we're just making a ton of cards and we're embossing, you know, like crazy. I don't know, those pads are just super juicy for a really long time. Okay. I really need a bigger desk, but I say that, but if I had a bigger desk, I would just clutter it up with more stuff, and I would end up with the same amount of like 12-inch by 12-inch working space, you know, after one project. Okay, let's add a little bit of a kind of a atmosphere into the scene. Let me break up this kind of horizon, not horizon line, but ridge line a little bit. I'll put my figure in a little bit of kind of atmospheric fog. You see people using this all the time in films, you know, the use of fog for any type of forest scene, it seems. Especially if it's night, they always have this fog rolling in. Or if it's in the daytime, if it's like a horror movie or something like that, you know, there's always this kind of atmospheric fog. You know, it just gives the scene a little bit more substance, you know, and texture, and it's something that I'm shooting film and whatnot, it gives it more light because you have this illuminated substance in the air, so everything looks a little bit more dimensional that way. Because everyone's watching on a two-dimensional surface in the form of a TV or movie screen, so I want things to look a little more dimensional and to fill out the, you know, the frame of the scene a little bit more. Okay. It's probably the director of photography does that type of thing. I don't know if the director does it itself, but probably I think they call it the DP, the director of photography. Alright, this tree is real wet, so I have to be careful around that. So kind of putting on those trees back there. Okay, now around this moon, add some of it around this moon to get that moon kind of glowing a little bit more. But see how my figure down here? We have a little bit of fog coming from above, but let's say that moonlight she's being really enveloped in this kind of moonlight. So I'll have a little bit kind of creeping in from the back there. Like that. See that right there? It kind of puts her into this kind of backlit kind of glow. Like that. And I think that gives it a little bit more it gives the figure more of an kind of an interaction with the depicted, the light that you're depicting in there by doing something like that. See that now? So it's saying that she's kind of being enveloped by that light, and hopefully it's a very welcoming light, So you put a little bit. It's really effective, this pigment ink application, and I always say it in my videos. It's where light meets dark. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it has to be dark. It could be just any type of where white. Maybe more accurately, it's where kind of white meets dark. But so that's why I've kind of retained some of the white of the page. I didn't have to retain a lot of it, but going around this moon, and it makes that moon kind of start to glow a little bit more. Doesn't it kind of give that soft lighting around it? This, I mean, it inherently has a little bit of that soft light to begin with, just in terms of the imagery itself, but this is a way just to go in and reiterate that a little bit. Get this little tiny moon up here, casting its glowing light. So you can't even see it, where I'm tapping it in the lighter area, but then I just kind of move it out like this, around there. Okay, putting some of this on my clouds. My clouds are kind of reflecting back some of that lighting, and where I've retained some of the lighter clouds, I can put some of this. I can't put it down here because it's just not going to make sense. There's no light hitting that area and it looks funny. But where you have light, you can kind of work some of this into that light area and then work it out into the dark a little bit. Okay. See this right here? That. See a little difference right there? Okay, so moving it down to the darkness, just kind of tapering it a little bit. It's definitely a dry brush type of application. Okay. You don't want a big slathering it. And if you add too much, see, I've added a little bit too much there. I just kind of tap it off like this with my finger and it comes right off. It kind of lifts it. Okay, now around some of these larger pieces on my concentric circle kind of, not grid, but I don't know, whatever, concentric circle framework. I'll make some of these little things glow like that. Like they're, I don't know, like a sun or something like that. Or a bright star within that area. Okay, here's one down here. See, it takes a while to kind of build it up, and that's kind of the consistency you want. You want it to where, you know, you have a lot of control over the application of it. And if it gave you a big blob, you know, it's it's just too much ink that you have on your tip here. Here, my Q-tip's starting to get a little bit too frayed. Let me try to get that back under control. Okay. So then how those ones stand out now a little bit. And some of these stars up here, just to kind of get rid of a little bit of that monotony. We'll make some of them glow a little bit. One of the fun things to do is do a little constellation or something like that. If you know your constellation, you can put your, you know, constellation up there for the month you were born or whatnot, or the year you were born. Okay, so I see those little glowing little bits up there. So it adds a little bit more dimension. But look at that. Hopefully it looks like there's kind of a deep space kind of feeling to it, you know, beyond the surface. That's the type of thing that I typically am going for when I try to depict deep space in this type of format anyway. I'm starting to really love doing matte dark papers, though, which is much more of a shallow space, and I really like that look too. But when I'm going for multi-layered dye-based inks like this, I tend to go for a lot of saturation and whatnot. But one of the things that I was thinking about that might be fun to do in here too is up in the sky, I was thinking about some birds. So let me go and grab one of those images. Okay, I think I have a couple good candidates here. Here's this lone eagle, and then I have this other stamp I call Flock. And think about using both of them in the piece. I'm tempted to use the Versifine on this eagle right here, though. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll stand out too much. Maybe I want to just retain the darkest things for those trees. Let's just go with the Marby black. I thought right here would look good. Kind of have it soaring kind of into the scene. Like that. And I'll put this Flock right here, kind of a little bit higher. I think I'll blot off some of the more distant ones on here. I mean, they're all going to be representative of something quite far away, but I think kind of up here. Yeah, right in this other tier. It's like a higher plane or whatever. Things are a little bit farther away. Like that. So they're kind of circling up there and getting close to the light, and the smaller ones, I kind of blotted off so they look a little bit farther away, and then you have that one. So, alright, I think that is done, maybe. Alright, maybe I will finish this off a little bit more. Why not? We've come this far, you and I. Thank you for watching if you sat through it to this point in time, but I'm going to tap on a little bit more tone on the perimeter. I'm doing it with a cosmetic brush. And this is just using the Marvy Black. I'm just kind of tipping my edge a little bit darker, just to really kind of create a strong vignette up there. I mean, it was already pretty dark, you know, but that's a little bit darker. It is darkening in some of the those gel pen dots too, so we'll get a different tone of gel pen dot there. It's a little bit of it'll be a darker value, which isn't bad, because we'll have multi-toned kind of detailing going on. And I usually add this type of touch down in the lower corners too, but I don't dare touch that the pigment ink application down there because it's still really wet. Okay, but look at that. Okay, let's see here. Boy, these big scenes, I have to kind of really zoom out with my tripod here. Okay, I tell you what, what I'll do is I'll spray this and then I'll conclude this video. So let's take a look and see what it looks like. Pre-spray. See some of that, those little dots, those little gel pen dots weren't covered up with the dye-based ink, so let me go over it with a pen here. I'll fill that in, okay? Let's take a look and see what this looks like pre-spray. Okay. And we'll see if we can tell the difference post-spray. And I'll spray it with a Krylon UV resistant clear acrylic spray. Okay, so it'll take me about a couple minutes, and we'll see what we get. Okay, do we see any difference here? I think it's everything is kind of unified a little bit more. I just sprayed this outside and I found that it's raining, so I had to kind of really be careful. But I figured, this is made out of water-based media, so I guess if it gets a little wet, then it's fine. Add a little bit more texture into the piece, but yeah, but look how beautiful this is with that spray. Look how deep those and kind of saturated those areas look in terms of the intensity of colors and the kind of the depth of I don't know, all those transparent tones that we've added into the piece. Look at that, those trees are really, it's really dark against dark down there, so they really kind of blend it. Oh, this piece is all floppy here, but anyway, yeah, I recommend spraying if you can stand the smell. Some people can't stand the smell of those types of sprays, but there's different types of sprays. I think there's low odor and whatnot out there that's available. But all right, another hopefully dramatic kind of silhouette based scene that will convey a certain type of mood, maybe. And I don't know, just a lot of fun to do. The techniques that I do on these really large scenes, as far as dye-based inks on glossy cardstock, are the same on a 8.5 by 11 as they are on a quarter-size piece. You could certainly do a piece, you know, that's this size, you know, with just the moon down there, and that would look rather dramatic as well. This one right here, I just figured, you know, if one moon would be dramatic, then maybe 4 would be more dramatic or something like that. So, and like I said, I really love this kind of color scheme right here with that type of glowing, kind of a warm, you know, umber brown, what's that other color? Sepia, or whatever. I really love those types of warm types of tones. That walnut ink, I think that did we use the walnut? We used the walnut in there from the Distress inks. I really love those types of tones. Those are really crystal, you know, clear, warm tones like that. So, just a lot of fun to do. And of course, I really love my gel pen types of looks that that type of thing provides. But just a lot of fun to do, and just kind of an extension on, you know, adding a cloud around a moon. It's just adding a lot more of it, and on a large piece of paper, just having a lot more real estate to work with. I don't like doing these all the time because you know, it's just big, you know. And the one thing I don't like about this, I don't have a lot of like 12 by 12 paper or something like that, but I really like to mat, you know, the finished pieces, and most of my matting paper is 8.5 by 11, so I can't mat it off with something like that. So I'm really limited as far as you know, that the prospect of matting goes. So sometimes I just leave them as is. But okay. But anyways, thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the piece.